What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome back to the Punk Rock Review. I'm hanging out with this is Andy Pohl from Sell the Heart Records, another small record label, bigger than mine, but independent record label, punk rock, little bit of weird jazz fusion stuff, right? No, I'm kidding. That'd be weird. A little bit of country music, but only the modern stuff with electronics in it. We don't want any of that like real country music, just the weird pop stuff that doesn't actually sound like country to me. So what's going on, dude? How you doing?
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me on here, Randy. I'm good. Just kind of enjoying a pretty lazy day.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, dude, I sent Andy the link to the to get on here with me, and I accidentally sent him the Bandcamp link to Valhalla Cinema, and I'm like, hey, that's actually a great band. Listen to it anyways. But 1 second, let me get you the right link, dude. I'm. It's just the days, dude. You have kids? I can't remember.
No children. No.
So I took my kid to eat lunch today, and I had to. We were waiting on my car at the car dealership, and so we're sitting in the place. There's other little kids playing. He's having a great time. There's like dinosaur toys involved. They're having a blast. The parents are sitting kind of by ourselves. Each one of us is doing our own thing. I look over and my kid's just a mess, crying. Just I'm like, why are you so sad? And he's like, because he said that his monster's bigger than mine. And I was like, none of this stuff is real. It's toys.
Yeah.
Just make yours bigger. And he was like, I can do that. I'm like, yeah, bro. Kids are wild. Well, so I wanted to talk about your label. I want to hear about some of the bands that you put out and just get to know each other, man. I want the community to get to know Sell the Heart. And
Sure.
Let's grow the community to one more person, man. I think it's important to do this stuff, to touch base with people, get to know people. It's incredibly important. So how long have you had the label going, and how many releases do you have under your belt?
Yeah, no, I'm stoked to be on the show, and I appreciate you bringing me on here. I think it's really cool what you're doing, and like trying to get a lot of new people involved in introducing them to a lot of different bands and labels. So thank you, first of all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to answer your question, the label started in 2010, and since then we've put out. We're gonna be on our 92nd release. Yeah, so getting close to 100 over that
That's
time.
amazing, dude. I bet you never thought you'd have 100 releases under your belt.
Yeah, definitely didn't even consider that as being a number that we would eventually get to, but. And you'll have to forgive me. I like to use the royal we a lot. Basically, it's just kind of me running everything. So, but I sometimes use we. But I was literally just taking it one album at a time, and had no real expectation. I mean, I think at some point I had a goal of hitting 100, just because I was getting, past that 50 mark, and so I was like, I could probably get to 100, and sure enough, we're almost there. Probably by the end of next year.
That's amazing.
We'll have gotten to 100.
Mm-hmm. Is it all vinyl?
No, not all vinyl. Mostly, definitely mostly. I would say about 80 to 85% of it is on vinyl, and then anything else is either CD or just digital. I've done a couple of cassettes too. Yeah.
Oh, dude, I love tapes. 1 second, I'm sorry. What, you need a bathroom? Yeah. All right, you're fine, baby. I'm working. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, man. Dad duty is always calling.
Never ends. Yeah.
Dude, it doesn't. If you don't want to have children like in your face all day, every day, don't have them. You know what I'm saying? I love it, but it is sometimes I'm like, bro, chill.
Sure.
At least he's being polite though. Hey, can I use your bathroom? Like, yeah, instead of just barging in here.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. That's a lot of vinyl. I mean, just knowing what I know about vinyl, that's a lot of money. Like that's no small feat.
Yeah, I mean it's vinyl is expensive to make, no matter how many you make. I mean the cheapest that I've ever seen for you can press like one if you want, like you can do like the lathe cut, and that's like $50 for like a single record pressing, because the person just does it all by hand,
Right.
They have like special materials and all that stuff. But usually if you want to do like a pressing of say like 100 copies of like a 12-inch, you can do it for about $1,000 now. But that doesn't include, you know, your cost to record and your cost to master, and if you're paying an artist, you know, to do the original artwork for you.
Dude, that doesn't
But
include shipping, bro. Like that, $1,000
right,
is like, that is for black vinyl, probably a fold up sleeve. We're talking minimal everything. Like that's
yeah,
$1,000 is very, very, at least in my experiences.
yeah. I would say that more often than not, you're realistically getting, you know, closer to like the $2,000 mark to press, you know, 100 records. Um, but that's including, you know, your mastering and your artwork and all that stuff and shipping.
Right.
But you know, as you go up, if you want to do like 200 or 300 or 500 or 1,000, it just starts to become exponentially more expensive. CDs are cheap now; they're dirt cheap to make, and cassettes are okay. Like they
Yeah,
don't cost a ton, you know.
they're like more than CDs and they're harder to sell. It makes no sense, but I still like them a
Yeah,
lot. So I want to do tapes. Like the next release I have is a cassette tape. I'm waiting on it right now.
yeah,
Yeah, I thought I was pretty proud of getting close to. We're working on 19 and 20 right now, which
that's cool.
again, I say it's just me as well.
Yeah,
And 20 is a big number to me. I can't imagine inching close to 100. And I feel like I may get there one day. I don't know. I mean, I'm not planning on stopping, but what I plan on doing and what the universe has in store for me are often not the same. So,
sure.
what was the first record that you put out?
The first record that the label released was actually a band that I was in. It was called Snipers, and we were this kind of post rock instrumental band, kind of along the lines of like Russian Circles meets like God is an Astronaut meets like Pelican. If you're familiar with any of those bands,
I know Pelican.
yeah, basically like very heavy instrumental music, you know, guitar
Okay.
driven. It was two guitar players. We had a bassist, then we had a drummer, and yeah, it was, you know, kind of riff heavy, you know, kind of spacey, a lot of delays, a lot of reverbs, a lot of that kind of stuff. And we would make these very long, kind of anthemic songs that had, you know, some sort of, I wouldn't call them pop sensible, you know, but you could kind of tell that one part was like part A, and then the next one was like part B, and then sometimes we would like resolve back to part A or something like that. But post rock's weird because you can go in many different directions with that type of music, you know, because it's very it's really not meant to be like pop, you know, where you have like a
Right.
verse, a chorus, and a verse, and then a bridge, and then an outro or something like that. A lot of times you're just building on stuff, and like it could become almost like drony in a way. But we wanted to somehow kind of, you know, write stories, but with just music, and
Okay.
you know, so in a lot of ways it's very akin to like orchestral music, you know, because you know you're just
Right.
taking a listener on a journey sonically without lyrics, you know. And yeah, so that was
You
the
can
first
tell a
release
story
we
without
did.
lyrics. That's not hard to do.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. I
Yeah.
love instrumental music. Like I'm a big jazz head. You know, I love surf guitar. I love surf music. You know, good like instrumental funk. You know, I'm down with all that stuff, and I love classical music too. You know,
It's interesting. I like I am very heavy on vocals and lyrics. Like I have to have
sure.
that in most music, but I found this really small niche of jazz that I really like. We're talking like between like let's say 1970 to like maybe 1985. So like about a 15-year period in Japan, they had this weird
Mm,
jazz movement that was going on there, and it was like this weird funky soul mimicking the West, but with their own flavor. And it
yeah.
had a lot of soul in this
Hmm.
jazz music. Not that jazz doesn't already, but like I don't know, it was a very particular sound. And I just one day happened to hear it and I was obsessed with it for like about 8 months. So I learned a little bit about it. I've never bought any of it on vinyl because everything that I found is always really expensive. But I do think one day I'll have one or two albums on vinyl probably that I cough up the money for that I really enjoy. But that's interesting, man. So it's more like like almost prog in nature kind of.
Yeah, yeah. Like you know, at that time it was kind of an in vogue genre. Like there were bands really booming up, like, Explosion in the Sky were huge. They're from Texas, so you probably know who they are.
I know who that is.
But like, Pelican, Russian Circles, God is an Astronaut, From Monument to Masses, Caspian, Junius. Like there's a ton of great bands kind of in that genre, that space. And so it was kind of like a really popular genre. And it, we didn't do it just because it was popular or anything. Like we actually like really enjoyed doing it. But we had another band, like myself and the drummer and the guitar player were in another band that was actually more like we had a vocalist, and we wrote more like kind of pop sensible music, that kind of thing. But this was more like we do this because we like playing this kind of music, and then we do this because we like playing this kind of music. So we had both of those. But yeah, that was the first release. And then shortly after that, I started working with a few other bands kind of from the general area. There was a band called Over the Falls that we released a CD for. They were kind of like Clutch meets like Faith No More meets Mr. Bungle meets meets like No Effects, like kind of
what?
Yeah, it was very interesting kind of music, and but very like the reason why I think Clutch, because like they just had like that, they had this singer that had this kind of like he kind of like growled like that, and then very riff heavy, and then there was a local guy, he went under the name Good Riddler. It was very interesting solo endeavor. Keep in mind, like I didn't really get into like releasing a lot of punk stuff until like kind of later, actually. So I was and the label's always been a bit less of a genre specific label and kind of more open-ended. I've never really wanted the label to be focused in on only one style. We do release a lot of stuff that's like under the umbrella of like punk, but punk's a pretty nebulous term. Like you can use it for a lot of different things, I mean, like Devo is considered punk, Blondie is considered punk, that kind of, so
dude, sorry,
no, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, like, it's funny. Two things. One, 31 Records is exactly why I didn't call it like Spiky Skull Records or some nonsense. I didn't want to be pigeonholed into just doing punk and hardcore. Right. And then my first release was a hip hop record, so
Oh, so there you go.
Yeah. So that's interesting that you guys aren't solely. Now, if I had my choice right now, would I line up 15 excellent punk bands and put it all out? Of course, that's what I love the most. But I didn't want to have to only do that. Like, there's a band in Houston. What are they called, man? They're like this, like almost power pop band. I really like these dudes. I'm supposed to go see them soon. I used to work with a couple of them, and I would like to put out like a CD or something for these guys because they're good dudes and their music is just really catchy. I mean, they have the full 80s thing going for them, dude. Like the guy's hair is kind of like wavy. I mean, if you saw them, you'd be like, those guys listen to a lot of like Genesis, right? Like they just like that kind of music. Yeah, pigeonholing yourself like that is kind of a boner of an idea unless you're just really only trying to do that, I guess. I guess there's a certain market where I'd want to have like a second label that was just one thing, maybe. Like I don't know. I feel like that's asking to have problems more than anything.
Yeah, well, there's benefits and there's I don't know. Like there's benefits to leaning into only one genre for sure because it makes it so much more easy to target to a certain audience. So I mean, like for example, are you familiar with Bad Time Records?
I love Bad Time Records, and yes, I mean, I get I 100% agree, but I feel like it just makes it to where if you come across a project, that's what it is really to me. Is if I come across a project that I really love, I don't want to have to be like, oh, I can't put this out. Like I don't want to have to start a second imprint. Like I just want to be able to put out a record that I like, and
sure.
Within my stable of albums that we've put out, dude, I've put out like Cold Oi stuff, like more of the poppy punk stuff. I got a couple of Oi's, like street punk bands. So I've put out I got a death rock band that I work with, and like, you know, I don't know that I could do that if I had a label that was just like, you know, Charged Records. It's all street punk stuff. Like that's all they do.
Mm-hmm.
And like
Right.
I just didn't want to do that. Plus, I like my logo. Like I like
Yeah.
it. You know, 31's the number that's been following me around my whole life. So, but so what made you? Because I mean, I knew of your stuff as primarily punk. I didn't know that way back in the day you guys weren't doing that. So what made you veer into punk rock?
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily that we veered into it, but more that you know, just bands that happen to be within the punk world started getting introduced to me, and it it was probably about like about a year after, you know, that I started, you know, getting exposed to more of like the bands that were punk and were kind of looking for labels and everything like that, and um, you know, since then I would say, I would say maybe about like 65% of what we put out would be like under the umbrella of punk rock, you know. But um, more specifically, I would say even less than that is actually like punk rock. If you really want to get specific, you know what I mean? Like stuff that I would qualify as punk would be stuff like, you know, Fat Heaven, um, Jukebox Romantics. Um, what else? Like, you know, we did like that Rancid tribute. We did the Fugazi tribute.
The Rancid one is the one that got me aware of your label.
Yeah, like Middle
Yeah.
Aged Queers is a queercore like punk band. Um, but you know, I would say the vast majority of the bands like have a more of like a punk influence, but I wouldn't necessarily qualify them as like punk bands, you know. But I, you know, we can go into like all the crazy specifics and like, you know, you know, subgenres of punk, you know, if you
Right.
want to. It's all just kind of under the umbrella, you know.
Well, it's
You know,
well that I mean that's true.
yeah,
But I also think that there is some importance in defining it, right? Like being punk and playing punk rock are definitely not the same thing. And
sure,
I've argued with people about that so much because like as an example, that silly YouTube channel Watch Mojo, they just put out a list of like the top 10 modern punk bands. And I did a video on their video because I was flabbergasted that there was literally one punk band in the entire list.
yeah,
And people are like, yeah, but these guys are like, they're punk in spirit. I'm like, that's what I'm saying though, but it's not, that doesn't mean you play punk rock. Like to be a modern punk band, you got to play punk rock. Like, you know, you can still be punk in ethos, punk in attitude and not play. I mean, you can still be, you could be that and be hip hop, jazz. You could be a country musician and
sure.
have punk rock run through your veins. But it's also
Like
silly to argue about.
who did they list? I'm just curious.
Bro, dude, they had on like Emil and the Sniffers. They had on what's that one? Oh my goodness, dude. Now I'm drawing blanks. The Chats were on there, I think. It was a bunch to Turnstile. That band was on there, dude. Like, no thanks. Sorry to anybody listens to Turnstile, but first off, like that stuff is not even remotely punk. It's not hardcore anymore either. Like they're just like a rock band, which is fine. But like
Sure.
why in the world would that get on a list of top punk bands? It was wild, dude.
Yeah, it becomes silly, you know, at a certain point, like having to, you know, deal with the punk police and, you know, semantics is like kind of our worst, you know, enemy here when it comes to that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, I think it's kind of hard to play guitar driven music um and not be influenced by punk in some way, you know, especially
Okay.
because there's so
That's
many
valid.
you know, like there's so many huge punk bands now. I mean, like Green Day is one of the biggest bands in the world, you know, like, you know, like the Ramones obviously were one of the biggest bands in the world for a long time. The Clash were one of the biggest bands in the world, you know, for a long time, you know, and so, um, you know, and then you have bands like, you know, Pearl Jam who have constantly been citing, you know, punk as like a huge influence, and like, you know, you can go down that rabbit hole into like
That's so weird to
grunge,
me.
like the grunge scene, like we're totally, you know, influenced by punk and, you know, and metal, you know,
Right.
and all that stuff, and like there's all the crossover obviously, and
I
then
mean,
there's
it
like
does get silly. Like I can admit
it
that
does. It's like
it's
at a certain point you just no longer have to even discuss it really. So
right.
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I the way I explain it is like, man, look, I'm going to protect things I love, and that one of those things is punk. So I do gatekeep. I don't understand why that's such a bad term. People use it as an insult. I don't get insulted by that word. Like, it doesn't bother me. You know, if you were standing in front of your front door with people trying to break in, you're gatekeeping your home, you're protecting it, right? So I don't want, like, let's just say bad people within my community, like people that are doing like assaults and things, like just nasty people.
Yeah.
So I want to gatekeep it, bro. So like, and that wouldn't be the same kind of gatekeeping necessarily. But my point is that it's something that you care about. You're going to argue about it, basically, right? But
right. Yeah.
I never thought about the influence that punk has had on just other genres, though. I never really thought about it like that. And so until you said it like that, like it's hard to play guitar-driven music without being influenced by punk. I guess that's pretty accurate.
I mean, obviously, like there are clearly genres out there that have no bearing with punk, you know, and are, you know, guitar driven too. But it's just more like I think that punk has become so ingrained in the music culture, especially guitar, like especially with like within the guitar driven rock genres, you know, that it's hard to not have some sort of punk influence. But the vast majority of the stuff that we put out kind of leans within the greater, you know, punk and like indie rock kind of alternative space, and a good majority of it has like that punk influence. Yeah,
those sounds all blend together nice, anyways.
Yeah,
especially good garage rock, good indie rock, good punk. They're not far removed from each other. It's all
right.
real similar. So what do you think that a band like, I don't know, Creed or Nickelback, how much punk is in their music? I'm kidding.
I'm
kidding, dude. I'm just.
I mean, if you want my answer, I'll tell you.
I actually, you know what? Yes. What would be your answer to that question? Because I was just being facetious, but like,
you know, I mean, I sincerely doubt that they could realistically like cite any punk bands and like people would believe them, you know. But
valid.
But I think I mean, realistically, I think that the only punk band that they could probably cite and maybe have it qualify as being okay, I can hear that, is maybe the Clash, you know, just because the Clash were kind of like, you know, a little bit all over the spectrum with their music,
right?
You know, like you know, they had like a pretty broad sound, but they were at their core like a very much a punk band, you know.
Yeah, I think all that like early 2000s like heavy alternative rock stuff is going to be like what's it called, like 2 points of whatever removed from that stuff, and they probably all listen to the grunge stuff, and then the grunge stuff is what cites punk as its influences. So it's in the DNA to a degree, but yeah, those guys probably listen to as much, like I would say, like alt country stuff as they do anything like real heavy. I would based on their, you know, aesthetics and whatnot. But it's amazing how much people are listening to those bands today. It is blowing my mind, dude. Like.
Well, like Creed and stuff.
Creed, Nickelback, Godsmack. I sell records, dude. I have dude. It's wild, man. Like every weekend, I'm like, bring me all your terrible 2000s music. I'll buy it. I need as much as I can get. And then kids are coming in ages like 17 to 20, buying it by stacks, dude. It's crazy.
Well, you know, I'll say this: like, there's a lot of people in this world, man, and you know, punk and like indie rock and emo and like ska and like, you know, all these little subgenres like hardcore and, you know, street punk, oi, you know, like we could go on this major long list of like all these little small genres. Like, it's actually kind of fascinating how small the footprints are compared to like, say, mainstream rock, you know, like Nickelback, like Creed. Because you're totally right. Like, millions and millions of people listen to those bands. It's staggering,
wild,
you know. And like, I have bands who I think are amazing, and I think if put in front of enough people, like, they could really pop off. But you know, there's a lot of hurdles to get past in order to, you know, get your music in front of people. And you know, the way that the music industry works is that it's like time, place, you know, how much work are you willing to put into it, money, and luck, you know.
Dude,
like,
luck has a lot to do with it.
Oh, luck has so much to do with it. And like, it kind of comes down to the timing thing. Like, the luck and the timing thing help a lot. And then, I hate to say it, but who you know. like having that magic handshake can really do wonders for you. And I see it all the time. I see bands that kind of magically come out of nowhere, and it's not to discredit the fact that they're talented people and that like they've probably put time in to get where they're at. Like, so I'm not going to be one of those people that be cast a bunch of shade on people that I don't know personally, but like I've seen these bands like pop up and you're like, dude, where did they come from? Like they just magically just are jumping on all these crazy tours, and like they're selling like hundreds of thousands of records, and you're just like, yeah, I don't know. And then you come to find out it's like the son of somebody, or like
Yep.
like the cousin, or they knew this band and like they just got like, oh, they got like the golden handshake, like A&R kind of thing. And again, like I don't necessarily I don't want to say that that's bad. I think it's kind of lame that is how the industry works a lot of times. But if I could change it, I'd change it. It would be more of like a merit-based thing. But I don't know. It's hard.
Well,
like, how do you really make that kind of a change?
you don't, you can't, and you probably shouldn't. Nothing on
No.
this planet works like that.
Right.
Merit-based stuff. Because if everything was merit-based, and I say this with all the love in the world for me and my community, right?
Yeah.
What do you think would happen if it was all merit-based? We wouldn't have nothing to be pissed about. We wouldn't have nothing to be disgruntled about. I'm dead.
Yeah.
I'm joking,
Yeah.
but I'm serious,
No,
man. Like,
I hear you. Yeah.
if everybody was happily married with a family, there would be no broken heart songs, which is like 90% of the good music out there. Like, and nepotism is another word, kind of like gatekeeping, man. It's like, is it really that big? No, it's a descriptive word. People have just taken it and made it mean something negative because that kid or that person or that band didn't ask to know this person necessarily or be born by this person. They were that just happened. You play the hand you're dealt. And does it suck sometimes when you're really talented and simply cannot get a break? Of course.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the game and it sucks. But that's so the one thing we should do is exactly what you and I are doing, though, is that we're making connections with other people that are, I would consider you quite a bit above where I'm at and like label stuff, but like in the same community. And so we're trying to grow the community so that me. So like, let's say you have a project that maybe you don't have the time to fool with, but you really like it. You could go, hey man, you got time for this, man? Or vice versa. And it just helps, man. It could help a band. If we didn't know each other, we couldn't do these things. So if we get a community big enough, it'll eventually we can become self-sufficient and have our own ecosystem and do our own things, which is what I'm trying to do personally. So
yeah. Well, and one thing I want to just be clear on too is that it's easy to discredit bands that might have a leg up by being in the right position. Like maybe their father or parents work in the music industry, or like maybe they had family members who were in other bands that were very famous, and so they kind of got a leg up by being introduced to the right people and like got these opportunities. Like like all that's great, and it's like, yeah, you can talk shit about that, but they still have to work hard. Like it's not like they just have to magically they magically get everything now handed to them on a silver platter. I mean, it does happen, but it's pretty rare that a band is just going to be literally given the keys to the castle. Like, you still have to work really hard, and touring is hard. Like touring at the frequency that a lot of these bands do, it's why you hear about people burning out and ODing, and deciding I can't do this anymore because it's too hard. Like, it's a mentally draining, type of lifestyle, and until you've reached a certain point where you can have comfort, like the type of comfort where touring isn't going to be a huge burden on your body and on your mind and all of that stuff. And that takes a long time to get to that point, and a lot of luck too. Yeah.
I just spoke to Colin from Cox Bar, and he said they flat out don't even want a tour like that. So like sometimes
I don't blame them. It's hard.
So like, I equate that to the steroid argument. Like, Barry Bonds was an excellent baseball player. Did he take steroids? I don't really know. I suspect he did. And I simply do not care, because at the end of the day, I could take all the steroids that the world can offer me. I will never hit as many home runs as Barry Bonds. What do you have, like 80 something in a season? Like, what are we doing, bro? Like, I'm not going to get up there and have a 420 batting average. Like, it doesn't matter if you can't do the work too. And so, yes, it sucks sometimes, but I would imagine anybody that's taking advantage of it is just taking advantage of their, the scenario they've been put in. And, if you got to be able to recognize your opportunities and take them when they're there.
It's coming to grips with the reality that this is how the industry works.
Right.
And, one other thing to kind of, touch on that with too is like this whole concept of like selling out, obviously I think you're old enough to remember like back in the 90s, like, like all the rigmarole around like Green Day, selling out and like all this stuff. And, like bands like Rancid, like getting on, Epitaph and, I don't think they ever put out anything on like a major label, but
no, but they got distribution through
well, Epitaph is distributed through a major label.
Yeah. So, but Rancid in 2003 is when they decided to go with the distribution through, because they were, on Hellcat, and Hellcat took on this distribution. And it's like, the thing is that selling out has never made any sense to me, because selling out has nothing to do with what label you're on. It's got something to do with who you are as a person. You only sell out if you change who you are in order to get to that money. And Green Day has always been the same band. I'm sorry to break it to you people, but if you listen to Green Day from 1993 and you listen to Green Day from 2023, it's virtually identical. If you listen to their interviews, they talk the same, they look the same, they act the same. They're just 30 years older. Like, I don't understand that either, man. Like, wouldn't you want to feed your family better? Wouldn't you want to take care of? I mean, they start labels with their money. They do all kinds of stuff for the community. What the hell is wrong with people, man?
Yeah, that's really what I was going to drive home is like, like it's really easy to cast a bunch of stones, at glass houses, because like, it's really, you're just like, man, like, why can't you just be happy for them?
Right,
like,
dude, for real.
They're successful and they write really good music.
But
anyway,
I had a guy tell me in the comments one day, he said Green Day and the Offspring aren't punk. And I was like, do you ever listen to like the first couple of AFI records, or you like One Man Army? And I named off like 6 or 7 bands, and he was like, yeah, why? And I was like, dude, all of those bands were put out on labels owned by Green Day and the Offspring.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, go look up Nitro Records. Look at all the stuff that they put out. That's Dexter from the Offspring. And he was like, yeah, but like, I'm just saying. I'm like, yeah, dude, Adeline Records, owned by Billy Joe Armstrong. Go look at what he did. My second favorite band of my whole life is One Man Army, and I wouldn't even know about them if it wasn't for Green Day. So like,
right.
What are we talking about, dude? It really just comes down to people. And again, you protect the things that you love. So the people that really, really love this specific kind of punk, they're going to tell me that I'm wrong. And then I'm going to tell the kids that MGK isn't punk. So it's punk is whatever you think punk is, I guess. I just think that I'm right. It's one of those, it's so stupid, man. It's so dumb. So, okay. Man, 90 something releases is a crazy number, bro. I don't know what I thought you were going to tell me, but you might have even told me 90 plus when we talked the other day. But like, it's such a staggering number. I'm like looking at 20 thinking like, I'm good, but I'm ready to call it a day. Not really, but like, I'm very satisfied with 20. Hitting 100 is a special thing, man. I'm happy for you. That's awesome.
Thanks.
What are some of the all right, here's a 2-pronged question for you. What are a couple of your best selling records, but you kind of maybe knew they were going to do really well? And then on the backside of that, what are a couple that came out and just really surprised you? Either, let's speak in positive ways, surprised you in a positive way.
Yeah. Well, the Rancid tribute record and the Op Ivy tribute records that we did, it was us, and we paired up with another local label called Lava Socks Records. Those sold really, really well, and we anticipated them selling really well, just because we both kind of figured, these are really beloved bands, and the material that are on the records are really good. We had a ton of really awesome bands contribute to them, so we knew that with that kind of caliber of bands contributing and just the source material being what it is, we were like, oh yeah, these are going to burn through. And yeah, they sold really well. The Rancid tribute record, we ended up repressing 3 times. And
Dang.
I think we're down to like less than like 70 copies total of the last pressing. So, and then once
Wow.
they're gone, like that's it. We're not repressing it again. We made that decision. And then the Operation Ivy tribute record, we pressed 500 of them, knowing that it was going to burn pretty well. And yeah, we've sold through. I think we have less than like 50 copies left of that.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then as far as stuff that sold really well, I guess surprisingly so, um, there's a band out of Wenatchee, Washington called Datura who I work with, and they're kind of more like a kind of gothy post-punk, kind of band. And we put out their first record a few years back, and we only pressed 100 copies of it, but we sold through really fast. And I was really pleasantly surprised at how fast it sold. And so we did a repressing of it. And I mean, I'm down to fewer than I think 30 copies of the second pressing of that one. And they actually, fun fact, have been the band out of all the bands I've worked with that have had the best streaming numbers out of
Oh,
anyone.
wow.
So they've just been able to really tap into that core post-punk kind of goth audience. They're not pulling like enormous numbers, but surprisingly doing really well at that. And so they're really doing a great job, even though like they don't tour a lot, which is nice. And then another album that sold really well, kind of out of the gate, was Nextcar's debut record. They're a band out of New York. They're kind of like a post-hardcore, a little punk, a little indie rock. Like kind of describe them as being like a bit of a mix of like Husker Du meets like Seaweed meets like Hot Water Music kind
What's
of vibe.
the name of the band again?
They're called Nextcars, one word.
Oh, like neck.
And yeah, like Nextcars. Yeah,
Man, I think I've heard them.
you probably have. Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome.
but yeah, they're great, and like their first record sold really well. We ended up repressing that one as well, and I think actually I'm out of copies of the repressing. I think the band is the only
Nice.
one that has copies of it. Yeah, so that one did really well. Yeah, so
Yeah, I think I'm coming up on my first dilemma here for like a couple of things that I'm basically out of, and I'm like trying to decide whether or not I should repress any of it. I think the band Poppers from Houston, we've sold out of their cassettes, but I think we're going to do a reissue on CD of their first album because it's pretty affordable and they're going to tour on it. And they're in the studio on their second album. So like there's reason to want to have their first one out in our hands still. We could do a couple hundred of those and it's not going to break the bank. But Before Dawn out of LA, we're running real low on number of vinyl records for that band. And they're like a super group and they're new and they're working on like a full length. So like they have a lot of room to grow. And I'm like, man, if we only have like 60 or 70 copies out of that left, I don't know that that's enough. Like we might want to go and get another 150 or 200 or 300 press. But like, I don't like to do 100 copies of stuff. It's not enough. The price doesn't make any sense to me. Like 250 seems to be the sweet spot in my experiences is like what I like to press is 250. That's cool, man. It's interesting doing this stuff. How do you operate mostly through a web store and Bandcamp?
yeah, we have a dedicated web store through Big Cartel, and then
I have that as well.
we have a Bandcamp. Yeah, and then I work with a distributor who takes in a certain number of copies of
Cool.
whatever I
Who does
press.
that for you?
It's called Hostel City.
Okay,
they're based
cool.
in Philadelphia.
Nice.
They're affiliated with MVD, which is a much larger
I know
distribution company. Yeah,
I know MVD. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
I've had a couple people reach out to me, but I send numbers out and I haven't gotten any responses. But my prices are good. I think that some of it's because I'm out of a couple of the things that they're asking about, and I only have like legit. When I say out, I'm not completely out, but I'm down to a low enough number to where I'm not wholesaling any of those. But it's hard to do this when you're one person, and it's like I can't afford to wholesale it if I've only got this many left, because once they're gone, they're probably just gone. Like I don't have the income or the capital to repress it when I have other things that need to be done first, and plus it takes time, and with any format outside of vinyl, it's not a problem. I can remake it, no big deal, whatever. But
Right.
like vinyl, dude, I mean, I'm not even doing 7 inches anymore. Like I will not make a 7-inch. It's just off the table. I'm not doing it. Bring me an EP and we'll do a single side 12-inch. That's about the same price anyways. It's a little bit, it's like 20% more.
Yeah, I've found that 7 inches are pretty hard to sell anymore because like prices have gone up, unfortunately, to
Dude.
press them. And it's really hard to justify selling a 7-inch for more than $10,
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
mine are like closer to 20. I have over $10 in them whole like manufactured. Like I think I have like almost $11 per. Now they're like
That's what I'm saying. Like,
they're really nice. They
yeah,
have really nice artwork, really nice covers. They're really pretty records. So like they're worth, but I mean, I'm selling them at like 15, $16. I'm not making anything on them. Like I could sell all of them and maybe make a couple $100. That's crazy. Like,
yeah, I'm with you. I'd rather just do like a single-sided 7-inch or single-sided 12-inch instead. Yeah.
how do you like 10-inch records? Do you ever do any of that stuff?
We've done two of them. We did
Wait,
the
middle-aged queers.
Yeah, the two Middle-Aged Queers, the first and second Middle-Aged Queers albums were done on 10-inch vinyl, and I mean they're fine. The only thing I hate about them is that you have to get special shipping packaging.
Yep.
If you really want to ship them well, So and it just means having to buy a specific type, when you're not really pressing that many of that type.
Right. So
Yeah, like I think I have like 30 leftover 10-inch mailers that I can't use because I don't have any more 10-inch records. So
dude, I'll be putting 7 inches in them shits, bro. I'll use them. I would probably mail 10-inch records in a 12-inch record box. Is what I would do. I would just pack it a little bit different, but I would probably do it that way because, like you said, I don't want to buy a bunch of 10-inch boxes and not be able to use them.
Right.
Yeah, I actually have both of those Middle-Aged Queers records. That's a good band. That's probably the band that I know the most off. Maybe not. That's one that I was looking at the other day, and I was picking out stuff to bring home and listen to, and that's one of the ones I brought in my box. It's in my kitchen right now. But yeah, dude, that's awesome. What would you say? There's so many questions I can ask that are like real similar that I don't want to like keep repeating myself. But like, okay, so if somebody asked you right now, like, hey man, I'm really wanting to start up a label, is there any advice that you would give them? Because I actually told people like I wouldn't even do it. Like I was like, unless you're willing to just lose money, like
Right.
What's your reasons? My first question, I guess. But like, what would you tell somebody that's asking you, hey, what do you recommend? I'm going to start a label. What's your advice? What is your?
I mean, my advice would be to treat it like gambling, like the same way that you would treat gambling, because you're not really going to make a lot of money on it. And if you do, that's great, but you're just going to end up reinvesting it back into the label because it's a self-fulfilling thing. Like,
Right.
Like for like, I'm currently unemployed, because I got laid off a few months ago. So I'm in the job market right now. And so I don't have, my own money to be able to put into it like I, would have while I was working. Right. So while I'm in this situation, like the label definitely has to just fund itself. Right. And thankfully, I mean, I'm very fortunate. The label has, for the most part, been able to fund itself.
Nice.
Like the sales from record A can go into producing record B, and then so on, right? And that's pretty much how I've always treated it, and that's the model that I run on, right? When I need to supplement it with my own money, I'll do that. But thankfully, there's enough records that sell even better that they can make up for the ones that don't sell so well, right? And so, yeah, my advice would definitely treat it like you treat gambling, where only invest as much as you're willing to lose, because that money will probably be just gone, and you probably will not see it back. If you do, treat it like a happy accident, basically. And I would also be very careful about not going in over your head with and worrying too much about the quantities that you're pressing. Like, you mentioned that, you pretty much only go with at least a minimum of 250 or so when you press something. And that's kind of how I used to do it. And I'm not trying to give you advice here, but I would anymore, like my minimum is like 100. And I might go more than 100 on some records at this point, you know.
Let me be clear, man. 250 is like what I was saying was my sweet spot, man. I do not understand anybody that's pressing 500 copies of anything, dude. Like,
I
want to save money and blah blah blah. It's like, dude, but you're not saving any money because you're going to end up with 300 copies of something you can't sell.
Well, yeah, you're gonna have to schlep them everywhere, and it's gonna be a mess, and you know.
Yeah, dude.
The other thing too, like the other piece of advice that I would really give to people is, really, really come to terms with the fact that people who are in bands are human, and they always have great intentions. But there's that old saying, like, you know, the path to hell is paved with good intentions.
It is.
Yeah, and so, and this isn't to knock anyone. Like, I'm not trying to knock anyone that I've worked with, you know, specifically or anything. But there will be times where the bands that you're working with may not do something that you really needed them to do, or something like that. Or maybe they're not playing enough shows, you know, that you would hope that they would be playing more, or that they might be more active on social media, or, you know, any number of things that to you think kind of makes sense, right? Or like, oh, well, why aren't you doing those things? And I would be doing that, but you're not them, right? And so you're not their manager either. Like, you're not their boss, you know. And
right.
Yeah, like you're in bed with them, right? You're doing this together, but this is really what the point I'm trying to make here is. The advice that I would say is make sure that your intentions are very clear out of the gate, and that you've laid it all out, and that you've really come to terms with the fact that, you know, the people that you're working with, they need to be at your level, and you need to trust your gut too. Like, if you feel like something's not right, it probably isn't, you know, and you should probably stick with your gut, you know.
That for sure. That I always try to tell people a couple of things too, man. And I've talked about this in the recent past, but there's things I could always build upon that I don't think of until I'm done with my video or whatever, right?
Sure.
And like, one thing I should have said the other day is that I make it a rule that I need to know the people at least a little bit, because I've had that blow up in my face pretty bad when I very early on. I don't pay for mastering because I don't want to own your masters. So you do all the recording stuff. I am simply a vehicle to get you some physical media.
Same.
I have a rule. If you are not touring, we are not doing vinyl. Unless it's like a 50-50 split or better for me. Like, unless we're doing like a straight co-release and I know, okay, I love this. Like, okay, there's obviously exceptions to every rule. But if you're not touring, I can't do vinyl because it doesn't make any sense, because you're going to only sell so much of that in your hometown.
Right.
But like, look for co-releases with people, man. If you're trying to start a label, start working with other labels, other friends that want to start up a label. Dude, I used to not like that. I have completely flipped around to where the more people I can work with, the better, because it's all about getting your brand and your name on as many things as you can so that you can get a foundation and a community together. Now, if I'm double dipping, and let's say that you and I go in together and create a record, well, everybody that buys it from me is going to see Sell the Heart. Everybody that buys it from you is going to see 31 Records. So like, it makes a lot of sense. And it also makes it infinitely more affordable. But like, yeah, taking it easy and don't overthink it is pretty important. It's tough, man. Cause I did this 30 years ago almost, man. I've put out records in the early 2000s. Like, yeah, this isn't my first time to do this. That's probably why I did it again, is because I was like, I've already done it once. I could probably do this again. Now, granted, things are, you know, completely flip-flopped as far as like how they are. You know, it's completely black and white difference. But yeah, I mean, definitely everything that you said is it's very accurate. Treating it like gambling is the best way I've ever heard anybody put it, though. Like, that makes a lot of sense. Don't do nothing you can't afford to lose. Like, don't spend money you can't not get back. Because yeah, it's self-fulfilling. Yeah, dude, I love it, man. Talking to you, I feel like I'm listening to myself talk to somebody. It's interesting. What have you learned along the way? Like, what was something that maybe surprised you when you were doing it? When you didn't see it coming, you're like, oh shit, this is something I didn't know about.
Well, mechanical royalties was something that I didn't really
understand.
What is that? So when you do a cover song and you put it out, you have to pay mechanical royalties, right?
Okay, yes, okay, I
Yeah,
didn't know it
and
was called
so
that.
yeah, so the way it all works is that the publishing company that manages the songs, the source material, they collect money for the original artist, the writer of the song, because when you cover their song and you release it on another platform for profit, they are entitled to a certain amount of money, up front. And it's not really a lot of money, depending on how many records you make, but you have to pay it, and a lot of people don't. There's a lot of people that don't pay those, and as much as like whatever, like I'm not going to yuck anyone's yum. Like if you're going to go that way, cool, man. But personally, I think it's kind of a slight to the original artist because a they deserve that money. Like that's their right to have that money. Like they're the one who wrote the source material, and they should get paid. Because like why would you not pay somebody to do the artwork for your album?
Right. I
You know
agree.
what I mean? To me, I feel like it's exactly the same thing, right? Like you're borrowing that person's art and you're repurposing it and then selling it to make money. So, you should pay them. And so, um, you have to pay those. And the other thing too is that there are pressing plants that legitimately won't press your record until you've done that because they can get into trouble.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And they
So
always make you sign
to
the thing saying like I have the
mhm.
right. So even if you don't do it, you're
Yep.
gonna have to sign something saying that you did, so they don't have to worry about getting in much trouble.
Oh
So
yeah.
you're asking for some real trouble if you get caught doing that.
Yeah,
But
I genuinely think that people are shooting themselves in the foot if they don't do it. Now, I mean, the reality here is that most major artists probably are not going to come looking for somebody who, released a cover on Bandcamp once and sold it to one person for $1, like,
right.
that's just not going to happen, right? But like in our case, like we pressed this, the Operation Ivy album, right? I mean, that was not cheap because it was 33 songs
Good
that
grief.
we had to pay for times 500 because we pressed 500 copies. So it was not a small amount of money that we had to pay them. I mean, it wasn't an absurd amount of money, but they wanted their money, and so we were like, yeah, here's the money, but we thankfully made that back no problem. So it
I
all just came
didn't
back to us.
that is insane. I didn't even think about it on like the level of like a tribute comp. That is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're doing just one song, it's not that much money. It's really not
Right.
that expensive. But
That's
when
the
you're
only
doing like a tribute
experience.
album, yeah.
That's the only experience I have in it is that shout out Static Friction, man. They we did an EP together and they covered an AFI song and he brought that up to me. And I'll be honest, when he asked me, he was like, hey man, should we do this? And I was like, look, man, I don't want to be like telling you how to do your thing, man. I was like, I'm a punk rocker, dude. Like, I don't care, man. You can record the song. I'm going to put it out. And then he was like, well, it's only this much money. And I was like, never mind. I'll pay for that. I was like, I thought it was going to be way more than that. So like, my point
Yeah.
is like, I learned through being a stubborn punk rock guy that like, it's really not that expensive. And if it's like car insurance, man, you probably won't ever need it. Maybe not car insurance, you'll probably need to some degree, but you know what I'm saying? You don't need it every single day of your life, but when you need it, you need it. And it's like, dude, just put the money down. I think it was like $80 or something like that to cover the
Yeah,
AFI. I mean,
it's
it
really
wasn't
not that
much.
much money,
The one
at the end
time
of the
too, we
day.
paid it, and then that was that. But like, you know what I learned really that sucked that I didn't know about? Did you want to laugh at me, bro? So like the first time I was putting out something in the 2020s, I got ready and I was just doing like a couple of tapes, and I was like, hey man, where can I send the artwork to the manufacturing guys? And they were like, what do you mean? And I was like, I don't know. Where do you want me to send this to you? I have it all made up. And he's like, oh, just send it to my email. And I was like, wait, hold on. It's like physical artwork. And he's like, what do you mean? And I took a photo and I was like, it's the artwork for the album. Like, but it was like it was a template, but it was three-dimensional. It was real.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I had never done it where you could just email, and I didn't know about like online. You have better learn Photoshop is my point.
Right.
I didn't know anything about Photoshop. I had never had Photoshop. And dude, my first like 4 releases were the biggest headaches I've ever, I almost quit doing it. But I was like, dude, I want to learn how to do this, but like, get ready for that kind of stuff to happen. like technological things you're not familiar with.
Yeah, you do have to wear a lot of hats, that's for sure. Like, I've gotten pretty good at graphic design. I've gotten good at keeping a calendar.
Yeah. Yes.
You have to do like PR. I've gotten pretty good at writing like press releases, booking, you know, taxes, things like that. So you learn a
Yeah.
lot.
It's
It's a lot of work. And that would probably be another piece of advice is like just be prepared to work a lot because it's not an easy thing to do. And like, my hat's off to people like, like Mike Park, who runs Asian Man Records. Like he's been doing it basically himself like this whole time,
right.
and he's had like people come in and volunteer and like help him with like stuff, and he'll give them records or something like that. But like, it's basically just been him and like his mom,
Right.
out of his garage like his whole time. And he's got huge bands, like he deals with like Alkaline Trio and like
Yeah. No,
bands like
that's.
that. So yeah.
I had him on the show, and when he told me it was just him, I was like, "Man, you don't have nobody helping you?" I was like, "That's crazy, bro!" Like,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, wearing a lot of hats is a very accurate description of some of the things that we do. Um, Taxes, and it all depends on what your goals are, man. If your goals are to be a tape label and you're making 100 tapes of this stuff, and there's not really any money being made or anything, like you probably don't have to keep very much records on that. But if you want to do anything like have a website and have like, and you want your Bandcamp to actually produce enough money to put out another record, like they will come looking at that stuff. And Bandcamp will tell you too, like pay attention to your emails, dude. Jeez Louise, dude, read your emails. Read your damn emails. I've missed so much stuff by accident. So
Yeah.
like reading an email is an incredibly important part of my day now. Like just staying on top of my to-do list, reading a calendar. Like you're not wrong about that, bro. Like learn how to manage a calendar. It's
Hmm.
I don't know. It takes
Pretty
a certain
important.
kind of person to want to do this, and I don't necessarily think I'm special at all. I think I'm just a kind of a I have a thing about staying really, 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 really busy. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be able to do this. Like I just
Hmm.
have to stay busy. I don't like I get bored very quick. But
Sure.
yeah, man. What are your goals for the next couple of years? Do you want to I know you want to surpass that 100 mark.
Yeah, I mean that's probably the main goal at this point is just to get to 100 releases and kind of be able to say, yeah, I did it. I got to 100 releases, and that was like kind of the main like quantifiable goal that I have, as it were. And then um, there's a few records that I've really been wanting to release, specifically reissues, like albums that had never been put on vinyl that I think it would be really cool to
Got a
put out on
couple of
vinyl.
those too.
And I'm currently in talks with a couple of bands about doing some stuff like that. And so those are, kind of slowly but surely making their way out there. And I'm hopeful that those will come out. I'm hoping for next year. I think that'd be cool if we can do them all next year. One of the things that I'm looking forward to doing is actually scaling back, to be perfectly honest with
Okay.
you, because yeah, because the last few years, I feel, especially during the pandemic, and then like the couple of years since the pandemic, um, I just I just turned up I just turned up everything to like 11, and I was releasing, gosh, like almost two releases a month,
That's so much.
like it was way too much. It was way too much. And during the pandemic, things were kind of interesting because like sales were up, like everyone was buying records, and like it was just like working, everything was working. And in the last year, and I'd say year and a half, there's been a pretty significant decline in sales across the board, I would say. Like some records still move pretty well, which is great, especially for the bands that are active and like they really push hard, and that's been great. And I've learned to kind of reduce the quantities a bit, and like it helps with not having to have the extra 100 units that are never going to sell.
Right.
um but yeah, this year I've scaled back a lot, and next year I want to scale back even more, just because I want to be more of a creator again and less of a, I
Okay.
guess, for like I want to create more and produce less, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah. No, I totally understand that.
because like I'm in the band Tsunami Bomb, and so like we've been trying to ramp up our creative output, and we're really hoping to finally release another full length. We've been talking about doing that for a number of years, and it's just been kind of one thing after another has kind of kept us from being able to get a full length done. We do have a few releases coming out though soon. We have like some 7 inches coming out, so those
nice.
Those are coming out soon. But like I recently started getting another project going, and I'm starting to get things rolling with that. And I just kind of want to dip my hands in making more things, like for my own stuff,
Right?
Like less
Yeah.
doing other people's things, So
I completely forgot you were in Tsunami Bomb. Like I totally forgot. And that was one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about. I completely forgot. I really love talking about label stuff since I'm in that world a little bit. It's really because I feel like if I talk to 100 people that own small labels, I'm going to learn 100 different things. Like for sure.
Sure.
I just can't imagine how I know everything to a degree. I won't learn something from somebody. But who's doing the Tsunami Bomb stuff? Is that going to be self-released, I assume?
Well, we currently work with Alternative Tentacles.
Oh, okay, cool.
And yeah, so the last couple of releases have been through them.
Nice.
Yeah, we have worked with a couple. We have self-released a few things, like digitally, and then yeah, I'm not really at liberty like to announce anything yet because we haven't firmly announced it. So, but what I can tell you is that there are other labels that will be involved in some upcoming releases. Yeah.
Cool, man. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear that. I enjoy Tsunami Bomb's music quite a bit. I've always been kind of partial to female fronted bands. I enjoy lady vocals.
Sure.
Now I don't necessarily think I like it more than anything else, but I have this like specific, like I enjoy it. Like I seek it out kind of thing,
Sure.
So I remember seeing
tons of great bands with women.
Dude, so many. I'm working on I'm working on a series of videos right now. I started out as one video. It's up to 3 women in punk. So
yeah, you were
actually
about this,
going to do the voiceover for part 1 tonight, hopefully. So it's going to be a long night, but
cool.
That's awesome. What has there been anything that you could point out in regards to the label that you just didn't see coming that you might warn people against? Maybe not even warn against, just like put up a warning sign like, hey, this could happen.
Well, I mean, I think honestly, just it kind of goes back to that advice that I gave about, only being willing to risk as much money as you're willing to lose. Is that, like, what I'll say is this, is that there are bands that you may really like, right? And you think are great. And you're just like, yeah, man, this album's awesome. I think you're a really cool person. I think all the people in your band are dope. Like maybe you've seen them live and you think that they're just great and they're killing it. And it just falls flat, like nobody seems to want to pick it up. And no matter how hard you push and, you go through the exact same channels that you do before, like, you push it out there and you put it out there in the world and nobody it doesn't seem to resonate with anyone. And, or, I mean, sometimes I've seen this happen where, you have an artist and you release their record and people are listening to it. Like they'll listen to it online, but they just don't want to buy the record. And maybe they're just one of those bands that are, people are more, okay, like I'll listen to them. I think they're great to listen to, but I'm not really that attached to them enough to want to buy a record from them or something like that. That's something that I would just tell you if you were to try to do this, to be prepared for, because it does happen.
A record is an investment these days. It's not like they're $12 anymore. If they were less than $15, it probably wouldn't matter. People would probably, like, as an example, like I don't have anybody, dude. Nobody comes in my store. I think I've been open for quite some time, years, and I've had maybe 2 people blind buy a record from me based on my recommendation, because people don't do that anymore. It's not the same, man. Like people don't just go in and go, oh, that looks cool, man. What does this sound like? And you kind of tell them and they go, dude, dope, I want to try this out, and then buy it. They won't do that anymore. And it's tough. There's a lot more bands that just exist online.
Yeah, people are more hesitant for sure. Like, I do a lot of flea markets and like stuff like that, like punk rock flea markets. And, something that'll happen a lot of times is, people will come up, they'll root through, my crates or something like that. And, they won't ask any questions. They won't even say anything. They'll just come by, flip, 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 flip. See ya. And, I'm always kind of like, you couldn't even say hello, like you couldn't
Right.
ask any questions, like, and mindful of the fact that maybe they literally are just looking for like a specific used record, and
Right.
maybe they don't realize that like it's a record label, but it's I don't know, I'm a pretty outgoing person, and I have no problem like starting conversations with people. Like I've never been shy about doing that, but I think there's a lot of people that unfortunately like are, and they're just not really going to engage with you, some random person they don't know. But uh, I don't know. Maybe it's just in my head. I'm thinking, dude, you're at a punk rock flea market. Like, there's people here to say hello to and interact with, and you're just gonna scoot through, and you'd have no idea what these bands are. Like, you have no idea whether or not you like them or not. You have no clue, right? But you're just gonna walk away without even trying to engage with it. And I, I really don't mean to sound like a jerk when I say this, but it's like, to me, I'm like, man, like it's just, I don't know. Something about it like kind of kills my heart a little bit, because I'm like, where's your curiosity? Like, where's
Oh, dude,
where's that where's that curiosity where it's like, man, like, what is this band, or like something like that, And I would love to tell you about these bands. Like, I would absolutely love to be like, here, and you know what I end up doing half the time? So I'll say, hey, like, what kind of stuff do you like? Like, what kind of bands do you like, or like anything like that? Because I'd be more than happy to point out a couple bands that maybe you really like. And sometimes it actually does work. Like, well, people will be like, well, like, Green Day or something like that. Oh, okay, well, you really like this band. I'm like, oh, really? Oh, yeah. Like, and then, I don't have like a listening station set up. I mean, I've tried that before, and it's not
it
always so easy to do.
no,
But
it's
yeah, but every once in a while, like, I'll get somebody who's like, you know what? Yeah, I'll buy this, and I'll be like, hell yeah. Like, to me, like, that's the best. Is because you're like,
oh,
dude,
dude.
you're gonna be so stoked on this record.
So okay, so what you said at the end of that is almost exactly what I was going to say when you finished your thought. I'm always like, what do you look? Having a record store is a little different than the label, but it's very similar,
Sure.
man. Like, I'm always like, well, what do you like? Like, if you're just looking but you're here to buy a record, that's what you're in here for. But if you don't tell me what you like, I can't guide you in the right direction. But that's my expertise. Like, that's what I do. This is why I
Right.
don't sell a bunch of like death metal stuff, because I don't know much about it. But if you're in here looking
Hmm.
for punk rock, I know a fair bit about it. And uh I said two earlier. It's probably been like 4 or 5 people that have bought blind, and it's all been stuff from my label because I know the most about it. But like, it's the best feeling in the world when you get a DM and like, hey man, I'm really glad you had me buy that. It happened to me yesterday. A guy's like, hey
Hmm.
man, I'm glad you got me to buy that Static Fiction record. It sounds exactly like what you said it was going to. It's exactly what I was looking for. And I'm like, dude, let's go, bro. That's what I'm
Hmm.
talking about, man. Because like you said, I'm also outgoing, and I want nothing more than the bands that I help to succeed, because I don't own
Right.
nothing. It's just like this. It's a community. I use the word community a lot, man, because that's all this really is to me. But like, I want my friends to succeed, and I don't work with people I don't like. So if I'm working with
Right.
you, I like you, and it's interesting, man. The people at the they do that. They flip through records. They don't pick anything up. They don't ask any questions. Dude, what didn't you used to at least be like, hey, what's this sound like when you saw like a cover
Right.
you were interested in? That's what I used to do. What's this sound like? And
Hmm.
what I learned to do at pop-up events is take a Bluetooth speaker and just have my Bandcamp ready. And when people go, I'm like, hey, what do you like? Da da da. Let's say they're like, oh, I like a lot of Susie and the Banshees. I won't even ask, but I'll turn on the speaker, hit before dawn. Hey, what's this? I'm like, oh, you said you like Susie and the Banshees. This the only thing I got that's like kind of like that is this, but I put this out. You want to check it out? It's $20. That's another thing
Right.
about owning the label is you can afford to sell them for a little bit cheaper than maybe they would be on the
Right.
counter somewhere. So I can be like, $20, it's yours, dude. Just take it, man. Like, I want you to have this more than I need the record. I don't need the $20 isn't even the issue. Like, if I could afford to give them away, I assure you I would. Uh,
Right.
it's a lot of fun, dude. So scale it back so that you can create, man. That's awesome. That's actually a good thing, man. You don't want to get burned out to where you just up and bail. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I'll admit, like, there's been, in the last, doing this for 15 years, there's been a few times when, I just really felt like a bit of frustration and just kind of like, man, is this even like really worth doing anymore? Because I feel like people really aren't engaging, and like, another thing that uh, starts to kind of wear on me a bit is the fact that, and I don't take it personally, of course, but you know, a lot of the bands that I work with aren't capable of like touring on any kind of consistent basis, right? Like I've had a few that have been able to like really get out there and tour a lot, and it absolutely helps to drive sales, like 100%. There's no question of it. But the vast majority of them are not able to. And let's face it, like life's expensive, and once you get past your mid 20s, like it turns up even more. It's like all your bills are piling up, and student debt and houses and kids and all this stuff. So it's like I don't ever lay that down as like some crazy expectation for the bands. It's like, oh, you're going to have to tour like nonstop, or else this isn't worth it. Because to your point, like, yeah, like if you're not touring, it's kind of hard to justify spending that much money on something if it's not going to sell. But really, for me, there's been these times where I'm like, man, some of these bands just they don't really do anything. Like they really haven't really been meeting their end of the bargain, that we had, and I'm not gonna put anyone on blast, but it, yeah, there's been times where I'm like, man, like, what am I doing this for? And did I just get kind of like bamboozled a bit? Like, because it kind of starts to feel like you're getting taken advantage of.
Oh, you will.
And
you will. Absolutely. People,
that you're kind of being treated like a bank,
Yes.
versus like being like a person, And like, I'll put this out there. Like I've had two experiences, thankfully only two, where I had, basically I feel like a band like essentially ripped me off, like on purpose. Like they were like, yeah, like we're just gonna do this, and we don't care. And I'm not gonna name any names or anything like that, but basically I was like, yeah, like you said you were gonna do this, and you said you were gonna put up this much money on your end to make it happen, and I said I would put up this much money on my end, and we agreed. Those were the terms. We did that, and you didn't end up with your side of the bargain. And so they're like, yeah, we know, and we don't care. And I'm like,
that's
cool.
Insane, dude. I would put that on. I'm not asking you to do that right now.
No, I'm not going to.
But like,
it's
I look, man, I got no time for that stuff. It just anybody's watching this, man. If you work with my label and you do that to me, I will be telling everybody, because that's wholly unnecessary and completely like it's just. I think it's very wrong. It's stealing, dude. You're stealing at that point, and
it is.
And like the only thing I've had happen that was close to that was one of the earlier bands I worked with. I was still young in doing this. I didn't have a lot of courage yet. I thought I was relying on them more so than they were relying on me. And so I wanted to please everybody. And I had a band talk me into doing a larger number than I wanted to of a certain item. And then right when I put all the money into it, they go radio silent on me. And then when I get the stuff, I'm like trying to contact them, like, hey, I'm trying to send you some stuff to take on tour with you. Like 2 or 3 weeks go by, and then I get an email like, oh, we broke up. And I'm like, awesome. I got all this dead inventory now. Like, what, and they're not buying any wholesale product, of course, because they broke up. So like, oh, dude, just be careful with who you're working with, man.
Yeah. And it's at this point, like I brought it up because it happened, but
Right.
like, I'm not like holding a grudge against it anymore, because as far as I'm concerned, it's like over, it's done with. But it just goes to show that like, that's one of those things that you're inevitably going to have to deal with, working with, people in general,
Yeah,
like, not just bands, but just people in general. They're going to let you down, and they're not going to meet your expectation. But, and
people thing.
Yeah. To go back to like answering the question, it's like, yeah, like that's part of what makes running the label really challenging, is because like when those things do happen, it can be a significant setback to you, like not only from like a financial standpoint, but from like really it makes you feel like, why am I doing this? Like should I be getting a lawyer and drawing up like legal documents or something like this? And like some people do that. Like I know people who run independent record labels who legitimately have lawyers. They write up documents. They have bands sign contracts. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like, I've never done that, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to do that, you know.
I would
But
rather
when
quit
those
than
kind
do
of
that.
when those kind of things happen, it like makes you start to question like if you should be doing that. And like, yeah, like from a practical standpoint, I mean, maybe you should be doing that because at the end of the day, like you have to like protect yourself. But the way I've always kind of treated it was that with any given band that I work with, the amount of money that you're dealing with is not some crazy substantial amount of money. You know, you're not talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars
Right.
or even tens of thousands of dollars. You're talking like a few $1,000s, you know. So, you know, what are you going to do? Like, you're going to chase them to court over
That's the
like
issue.
$2,000? You know, like, you're not going to do
Right.
that, you know.
It's a
That's
lot of money to you at the time, but in the grand scale of your life in the world, it's not much money and it's not worth chasing, which is probably why people do that, because they know that and they don't care. And some people are just shitty, dude. Some people just suck. It is what it is, man. So we've been talking for a little while, man. Don't hang up quite yet. I want to wrap this up. I've had a blast talking with you, man. Don't hang up quite yet. Last question though, because this just about 20 minutes ago it popped in my head and I was like, I've got to ask you this because it's such a weird question, but what you just said makes it a more valid question. So we just saw Fat Records sell to Hopeless Records.
yeah.
Is there ever a scenario where you would sell your record label to somebody, to another label?
Well, so it would be different. It would be different circumstances
Right.
because I don't own any of the music, you know.
Valid
Well,
point.
I should
Yeah.
say I own some of the music because I've released some of my own music, you know,
Sure.
on it. But the only thing I would be able to do would be to sell the inventory. Like, that would be the only thing I could
The
do.
inventory and the name
Now,
and yeah.
yeah, I would be to answer your question. If like, I'm just gonna throw it out there. Like, let's say Iodine Recordings, right? Like my buddy Casey. Let's say Iodine wanted to consume the Sell the Heart brand and all of our back catalog, right? Um, you know, it would be one of those scenarios where I'd just be like, well, you can buy my inventory from me and you can sell the inventory and have that under your distribution, basically, but you wouldn't be owning any of the music. And so, if I will tell you this though, if Sell the Heart did operate in that way where I did own the masters to everything, realistically, yeah, I would. Like, I would totally do it. Because I think like, why not?
Right.
I would I will say I really think that it was kind of cool the way that Fat did it.
I
And you know,
agree.
they paid off all the band's debts,
Yep.
or they basically eliminated it. Like,
Yes.
they in the sale they said, yeah, you have to strike all their debt, which I thought was so classy. Like, such a
It
classy
was
move.
awesome that
Yeah.
Hopeless was willing to even do that.
Yeah, no,
That's a
I
lot
mean,
of money that they're just out now.
yeah, but I mean, I'm sure that they'll make it up. I
No, no,
mean,
no.
just
It was a
from the
very smart
yeah,
business move, in my
yeah,
opinion. But they could have been like, well, no, because we were going to depend on some of that to come back to kind of recoup some of the initial costs of buying it, because that does make sense. Well, we'll buy this and then we'll go after this debt to help clear up some of the overhead that we took, or whatever initial costs, whatever that we took on to buy the label. Maybe we won't go for 100%. Maybe we'll offer them, hey, give us 50% of what you owe. We'll call it square. And it'll bring our initial investment down to a more reasonable dollar amount. But they were just like, no, let's make it pleasant for everybody, including the fans. And I think that's what they did. They made the fans happy, they made the bands happy, and then the labels are happy. I think it was one of the coolest things ever. And then Hopeless is going to go and have a hopefully catalog and future catalog of like more punk bands, whereas they haven't had that for quite some time. So I think it's great, man. But yes, if somebody bought Sell the Heart or 31 Records, it would be a brand purchase more than anything. It wouldn't really be they would be buying an image, a brand, a Instagram page, that kind of stuff. It'd be I just want to start this, and I'd rather have your lead on this. Let me go ahead and jump in where you're at, and that's what it would be basically. But I didn't even consider that when I
yeah,
was asking the question.
yeah. I mean, like, if somebody wanted to buy the brand and continue the label, I mean, all they'd really be doing is buying the the logo, you know.
Yeah, but dude, there's a lot to be said for that though. Because if they bought your logo, they bought your website, they bought your Instagram, because that's what they would own all that stuff. They would take the Instagram page, website, all that stuff. There's experience and then a name that comes with that. They're buying a reputation, and that's what I've seen people that want to do that. They want to. I've been offered money for my YouTube channel, bro.
Wow.
Like, it's weird. I was like, "What do you mean buy my channel? Is your channel for sale?" I'm like, what does that even mean? I was like, I'm not, no, but what do you mean by that? Like, and then they explained what they were talking about. And I was like, they wanted to basically take my channel. They absorb all the income from it. They pay me a certain dollar amount, and then I stay on creating content. And then after a certain dollar amount, I start getting paid. It was really, it sounded weird. It sounded like a pipe dream, honestly. I was like, I don't bring in enough money to make that make sense unless you're going to put me under an umbrella that I'm now with, like a corporation that I'm with all these other channels. They feed up, but that would go against everything I kind of believe in. So like,
sure,
it was weird, man. There's a lot of weird stuff happening. I've been offered money for footage from things I've filmed that I'm like, what do you want that footage for, bro? It's very strange you want that, but people are interesting. Okay. Lastly, before we get out of here, man, what are you listening to right now? What is on your playlist currently? I don't want to set you up to be like, oh, what bands do you like on your label? Because that's freaking weird. I assume all of them. So, what are you listening to right now? What's on your playlist?
Most recently, I've been really digging the new Deftones record that just came out, and
I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, I'm a huge Deftones fan.
Okay.
I have some lyrics tattooed on me. But yeah, that album is great. There's a new album from the band POHL that is excellent. Been really digging into the band Soccer Mommy a lot.
I like that name.
yeah, it's very it's kind of breezy, kind of indie rock, kind of like almost like a little shoegazy, you know.
Okay.
What else? Actually, I've been listening to Mastodon lately. Just
nice.
When Brent passed away, I was like, I got to revisit them. So I've been.
Wait, which guy passed away? I don't know a lot about them.
Brent Hines passed away. He was the guitarist and vocalist, and they had recently kicked him out of the band. Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
Really, really quite a bummer because he basically got asked to leave the band, and then not that long after that, he was in a motorcycle accident and he passed away. Yeah.
Oh, that sucks, dude. So it was like that's awful. Wait, is it the guy with the face tattoo?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, really sad.
I just saw a video of him like yesterday.
Yeah.
Dude, that sucks, man. I'm so sorry for his friends and family. When you said earlier you were talking about like this like long, drony, like heavy proggy music, I literally thought Mastodon. I don't know why.
Yeah. I mean, Mastodon's great.
But like, that's interesting you bring them up, man. Bro, this went by really, really fast. I appreciate your time, dude. I'm going to put all your information in the description of this video. If anybody has any questions, just about anything, specifically for Andy, like I'll put his Instagram and the links to his social medias and web store and everything in the description. You could go check out his record, check out his Bandcamp, listen to stuff, pick up something, man. Support these small labels. I don't know if I consider labels small anymore, but like whatever, independent labels. Yeah, dude, we need all the help we can get, and this stuff doesn't happen without the community support. So, is there any last words of advice you got for anybody before we go?
Just be kind to each other. It's kind of a crappy world out there. It doesn't cost you anything to be nice to each other. But I will say just a couple of last things to mention. We have a Bandcamp subscription that you can sign up for, which is a really great way to support the label because you get all the music we put out. It also includes physical releases depending on which tier you sign up for. We have a vinyl club you can sign up for, which is an annual thing where this year it's 7 records and a t-shirt and an enamel pin for one cost, like one price. It includes all the shipping, and you basically get a huge discount on all the records.
Nice.
We have a Patreon you can sign up for, which has several different tiers, starting as low as I think $3 a month. And each one of those comes with a physical bonus, basically, depending on which tier you go, you get more. So all awesome ways to support the label in a sustainable way. and flexible too, because I know not everyone has the ability to buy like every record we put out, but if you just want to get a couple or something like that. And yeah, like honestly, if you haven't considered it, consider spending time researching bands and buying digital albums, because streaming is not it. Like, stream music all you want, but the ones you really like, go buy the record. It means a lot to bands when you buy their record. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because I had a question earlier that we got to talk about something else and I forgot it. I was going to ask you how you felt about all that. You kind of answered that question now. So I assume that you're much more of a anti-Spotify guy than you are. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I'm anti-Spotify as a company. I think that they're a terrible company and terrible deeds, and they've done enough damage, and it's time to let them go. And I think people need to just use alternatives. And it's so easy. Like, all you have to do is use Apple Music, Tidal, use Amazon, whatever. And I know we live in a society, and like, like we argue about stuff on our iPhones and like all this stuff, and you can argue till you're blue in the teeth, but it doesn't change the fact Spotify is a terrible company. You should stop using them. Just stop using
What's
them.
different between that and Apple Music?
What do you mean?
Like, what is better about Apple Music than Spotify?
Well, Apple Music arguably sounds better, and you're not supporting a company that's like literally like donating to like drone technology and like military.
You don't think that Apple's got their foot in that some way, shape, or form, and you just don't know about it because it's Apple?
They might, but
I mean,
here's the thing: there's the devil you know and the devil you don't.
Sure.
Right. Okay. So my stance is this: I know for a fact that the money going into Spotify goes to that. So why would I give them money? Right.
Yeah,
but that's why I said that there are alternatives. There's Tidal, there's YouTube Music.
Bandcamp is the best one. Bandcamp's the one. I wish they would put a little. I think they're working on it, but once Bandcamp gets a little bit better, I'm probably going to transition to just using that solely, just because that's what I would like to do. I'm trying to get my brain to do it. It's just so easy. Look, I'm not going to even front, bro. I use Spotify. I'm not going to act like I don't.
And I'm not gonna tell you you're a bad person for using
right.
it,
I mean, dude, because like you said, we all have cell phones. So what? Where does that argument end, right? So yeah, exactly. If I can ultimately get off of the platform, I probably will at some point. I do think it is. 6 months ago, I didn't say this though. 6 months ago, I wasn't on the "if I can get off there, I will" idea. That's been a recent change, probably within the last 6 to 8 months, but. Yeah, when things come to light, like you said, the devil you do and the devil you don't know. But I just tend to think that all those companies are pretty interchangeable as far as I'm concerned. Maybe not Tidal. I don't know much about Tidal, but Apple Music, Amazon, Spotify, it's all the same thing, man. They're all the same people. They all run in the same circles. They do the same things. They like the same stuff. They want the same outcomes. It sucks. Buy records. Use Bandcamp.
There
use
you go.
YouTube.
Buy records.
Yeah, buy records.
Digital stuff. Yeah.
Come into my record store. We'll listen to some stuff, and if you want to buy it and you don't have enough money, I'll still sell it to you. Like, it's just come buy records, man. I really appreciate your time, brother. Thank you so much. Give me a second here. Everybody, like I said, man, you want to reach the man? He gave you all the subscription stuff that you were just talking about. Is that all available like through your Bandcamp? They can find it all out there, or on Patreon?
Yeah, if you like, I'll send you all the links just so you have.
Cool,
yeah.
Cool. But all the information on like all the different tiers and all the different available options it's all real easy to figure out, right? Okay, cool.
Very easy. Yep.
Go support this man, what he's doing. I believe in it. You should too. You probably do. You just don't know yet because you haven't gone there. So, yeah, man, my community is awesome. So I imagine you'll see some kind of interest in it. I would hope. Anyways,
I hope so.
We'll see you guys in the next Punk Rock Review podcast, man. Peace.